Good morning, Ysrael. Let's go ahead and get started with your math lesson preview for today. So you went through and corrected everything. For the most part, everything looks good, except for 27A. So you copied the problem incorrectly, first of all. You wrote 3.5 divided by 10. The book asked you to do 3.5 divided by 100. Okay, this is a mental math problem. Why is it mental math? Because in your head you can imagine moving this decimal 2 places to the left to get your answer. Okay, move that decimal 2 places to the left. Why 2 places? Because you have 2 zeros here in the number 100. Okay, I wrote you a note for 27B. When you divide by 10, you can move the decimal 1 place to the left. Okay, here you're dividing by 100. You can move that decimal 2 places to the left for 27A. Okay, everything else looks good. Let's look at lesson 119. Okay, you didn't get very far, but everything so far looks almost good. So for for F, I think you maybe you need to go back and recall what each Roman numeral represents. If you need a little bit of help, ask Sarah. She is a pro at quote-unquote Roman numerals. But go back and refresh yourself, either in your book or ask Sarah. What does M represent? What does C represent? X, I, what do those represent? And go back and correct this. Your answer is incorrect, unfortunately. Okay, you need to go through now and complete lesson 119, which is about dividing by a decimal number. Okay, in your previous lesson, was it just the previous lesson? You divided decimals by adding an extra 0 onto the end until your remainder is 0, rather than finding a quote-unquote remainder. Now you're going to continue to practice dividing by a decimal number, where you have your so if this is your dividend, I hope I'm saying this correctly, if this is your dividend and this is your divisor, then your divisor is a decimal number. New concept. Okay, and what you're going to end up doing is thinking of your division problem as if it were a fraction. And you know, with fractions, if you multiply the numerator and the denominator by the same thing, you have an equivalent fraction that means essentially the same thing as what you began with. So you're going to multiply your divisor and your dividend by the same number to get two different numbers. A fraction, like I said, that means the same thing. And then proceed to divide now that you have a whole number as your divisor. 1.2 divided by 3. Okay, and that's how you're going to do that. Okay, here's a decimal chart, a memory cue. So when you're adding decimals, remember to line up your decimal. That's what you're being reminded to do. When you're adding, line up your decimal so that they're right beneath each other. When you multiply, remember that if you have one place if you have, for instance, one decimal place and one decimal place, that means you're going to have two decimal places to the right of your decimal. You may have a number with 2 decimals, for example, and maybe a number with 2 decimal places that you're multiplying. Then you'll have 4 decimal places behind your decimal. Does that make sense? Hope so. Ask me any questions you may have. Okay, again, when you're dividing, you line up your decimals and you divide by a whole number. You divide by your whole number. Okay, make sure you line up your decimals as you divide. Again, dividing by a decimal, you need to move the decimal to the right and move the decimal to the right. However many places you move the decimal to the right here, you need to move the decimal to the same number of places to the right here. Okay, so that's as if you were multiplying by 10. Or maybe you may need to multiply by 100. Maybe you may need to move that decimal 2 places over to get a whole number. But you move the decimal over 1 place, or maybe 2 places, or maybe 3 places, and move that decimal over 1 place, or maybe 2 places, or maybe 3 places. Move the decimal to the right the same number of times for your decimal dividend. For your decimal divisor and your dividend. Okay, moving the decimal to the right is the same as multiplying by 10 over 10, or maybe you may need to multiply by 100 over 100 depending on where your decimal is. Okay, does that make sense? Hope so. Okay, so for lesson 119, you're going to have to go ahead with your problem set and get that completed, and then your mixed practice. Okay, I look forward to grading this. Look forward to you getting a perfect score. Alrighty then. Shalom. Have a great math class.